Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing today?
Ciao Arlindo, ciao to everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm good.
Hello
Thank you
to
so much.
everybody. Thank you.
Good to see you all here. It's a very special and important meeting about the things that's going on right now, and we need to be very careful. We already have 2 cases, and luckily one of them didn't go any further. One of them I mentioned to you guys, I think on the last meeting, I received a phone call from a public member complaining about that one of our agents was advertising that the property is nearby a church. And that's one thing that we cannot mention. And luckily, this person only called to notify what he found. So he didn't file any complaint, he didn't do anything. And luckily, we didn't get it. This agent in particularly and the company didn't get into any trouble. But this is a violation of the FAIR Act. Fair Housing Act actually is the full name of it. And about 2 weeks ago, an agent that I know, and I believe most of us know her as well, I'm not going to mention names or anything, she received a complaint, and the complaint was filed in a federal court. The biggest problem with the complaint being filed in a federal court is that you need an attorney to defend you. Well, maybe there's a chance that you are going to prove your innocence in court, but you're going to spend between $20,000 to $40,000 with an attorney. And what this law firm is doing, and I will let Scott soon to explain it to us in better details, is that they are settle the case with in the amount of $2,500 to $7,500. So even though you think you can prove you're innocent, you know you're gonna have to spend $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 with an attorney. So you're gonna end up settled for $2,500 to $7,500. Now, guys, which is very important, is that when we took that's just for you to see how important this is, and a lot of people, they don't pay attention. When I'm in class and I'm teaching the 63 hours that we all been through, and I tell my students that there's a lot of things in this book that we need for life. But these people, until today, even after they got the license, they still believe that the book is worth nothing. There is nothing in the book that we needed. Now, for you guys to see how important the Fair Housing Act is, you see it on the 63 hours. When you do your post-license, it's there also, it's part of the material. And every 2 years when you do your CE, your continuing education, Fair Housing Act is also part of the material, because they want us to understand what we can say and what we cannot say. I'm going to put this slide here for you guys. So we're gonna go over a few things, and then I'm gonna hand it to Scott. All right, the federal laws that are related to real estate. The Civil Rights Act of 1968 creates the Fair Housing Act, and they're including 7 classes that are protected: race, color, religion, sex, national origin, handicap, which is the ADA, and the familial status. So once you look into this, maybe it doesn't tell you much. So, okay, I cannot discriminate against race. I cannot discriminate against color, religion, but what actually means in terms of language. And before we go any further, I wanted to tell you what happened to this agent that received the complaint. she received a phone call from a potential tenant. She wanted to rent a place that she was listing. She was the listing agent. And within the conversation that they were having, this person intentionally mentioned that he was arrested. So the agent said that then he will not be approved by the association. So that was what he used to file a complaint against this particular agent, because she said that he is not going to be approved. Now, guys, you remember, because I've seen this every other meetings, on my classes with the school, I mentioned the same thing. Number one thing that I mentioned is that our job is to facilitate a transaction. Have you heard me saying that? How many times you heard me saying that, right? Our job is to facilitate a transaction. And the second thing that I always say is don't do anything that goes beyond the scope of your license. And that's exactly what she did when she expressed her opinion. Now, it's not up to her to approve or deny an application. It's up to the association to approve and deny an application. She did not have to express her opinion. So it's very risky or dangerous for us to express an opinion about anything. You know, someone asks you, what do you think? Should I buy this property? Should I rent this property? I got a question from one of my clients. He was the landlord, and I presented to him an offer. And he was asking me, well, I got 2 offers. What do you think? I should accept it. And I said, look, it's your property. At the end of the day, it's going to be your decision. So my opinion is irrelevant. You own the property. You're going to have a tenant living inside your property. And at the end of the day, it's going to be your decision. So you need to make that decision. I'm not going to express my opinion. Of course, I knew what my opinion was. I knew which one I would choose if I owned the property. But why am I going to put myself in that position to express an opinion about something that can, in the future, bite me in the back? So that's exactly what she did. So try or not try. Do very hard. Don't express your opinion, especially if it's a legal opinion. You know, transfer to the people responsible for that. That's what she had to do. She should have tell him, look, it's your decision. If you believe everything is okay because you're the one who knows what happened to you, you apply for the association and they will decide that if they're going to approve you or not. I cannot tell you that because it's not in my power to decide that if you're going to be approved or not. It's not in my power, so I can't even express my opinion in that. So you need to make the application to the association and let the association decide. So why am I going to bring the war into my soil? No, not going to do that, right? So don't express your opinion and always be the facilitator. Bring the 2 people together, tenant and landlord. Bring them together and let them make the decision. That's what the landlord hired you for. The landlord hired you to find a tenant. A seller hired you to find a buyer. So go find a buyer, go find a tenant, and present them and put them together and let them make a decision. Right? So let's look into what does that mean. Now, familial status is a family with children under 18 or pregnant woman. So you got to be careful when you make your advertising. Let me tell you one thing. One job that requires a lot of responsibility, and I'm not saying because it's my job. I'm saying because it's true. And I'm going to let Scott reinforce what I'm going to say now. Instead of it's the job of a broker, because what I've been telling you for almost all the meetings is that everything that you guys do, say, and sign you do say and sign on behalf of the broker. So actually, I'm the one saying through your mouth. So if you say something, the suit is going to come to me. Or if it comes to you as well, I'm going to have to accompany you to court. So what I was supposed to do, and every single broker was supposed to do, is supervise every single advertising. And I believe that it's not practical, you know, because it's going to delay the process. Because you want to make an advertising and you need to send them to me, waiting for an approval, and then that should be the right way to do it. This is the reason why we do this meeting every week. And I gotta express you guys my opinion. I really appreciate the people that are in the meeting every week, but it's frustrating to have only a few people in the meeting when we have more than 60 agents, and we do this job to prepare the meeting, get other people involved, like Scott, like John, like the Loan Depot, to present it to you some good material, some good training, and not everybody take advantage of it. But still, we prepared this so I can give you more freedom. So I can trust that you guys are understanding what needs to be said and what cannot be said, and then you can do your job. So, but the fact is that I should have to supervise all the advertisings. And when I talk about advertising, I am not only saying advertise that you put it on paper or something. You know, it's any type of advertising. Even a business card is a type of advertising. Any advertising that you put in social media, or the remarks that you put it on the MLS. All the words that you put it there is an advertising. And that's what this other agent did. She said it's close or nearby a church. What she should have said, if she believes that information is relevant, in my opinion, I don't think it's relevant. But if she thinks that this information is relevant, then the only words that she could use is nearby a worship house. Then you're not saying churches, you're not saying temples, you're not saying synagogue or anything like that, okay? So the handicap status is any physical or mental impairment that interferes with normal life functions. So you cannot say that such person cannot buy or rent this property. Discrimination in general. Discrimination might be legal if it does not violate federal, state, or local laws. It's about smokers or pets, or license should be familiar with the laws in the areas where they are operating. So this is not a type of discrimination. Now, residential real estate transactions. Well, those are what is really being focused on the law. I don't need to mention that. But if you are involved as a broker, you know, because you are representing a broker, so if any transaction is being represented by a broker, then we need to be careful with the Federal Housing Act, okay? Now, there's another thing that I've seen some agents practicing, which is steering. Some clients come to us and say, look, I want to leave or buy a house close to a synagogue. And then you pick Aventura, and then you only show property in Aventura. That's considered to be steering, okay? Or channeling. What you have to do is to either show the person a map where there are synagogues and let them pick the place, or you pick 3, 4, 5 different cities or different areas, and then you show them properties on those 3, 4, 5, 6 different areas. But never pick one area to show, or never steer them away from some neighborhood. You say, I want to see properties here. Oh, no, this neighborhood is not good. I'm not going to show you property there because it's not good. Don't try to steer them away or into. Okay, so those practice, I've seen some agents trying to do their best. They're not doing intentionally. They're just trying to be at service, you know, provide a better service to them. But you don't know who is behind the question. And I'm gonna let Scott to explain about this, because those are the testers that this firm are hiring. So when you actually talking to someone on the phone, you don't know what that person is. If this is a real tenant that is really trying to rent something, or if it's a tester, okay? Now, prohibits activities is related to rent, sell, negotiating, or deal with a member of a protected class. Quote different terms, conditions, or privilege for buying or renting. Someone calls you and then you identify that that person's from a certain class and you don't want them to rent the property to them, and then you say, well, the property is already rented. Or you tell them that the renting price is actually higher than the renting that's being offered, the price that's being offered. So advertising house is available only to people of certain race, you know, only for Spanish people or religion. Deny membership of any real estate service, you know, you say, no, I'm not gonna work with you because of this and that. Make false statements concerning availability of housing for inspection, rent, or sale. Now, I found this very interesting. If you're not sure, do not use ethnic references like Black, Caucasian, white, Asian, African, Indian. Don't use those terms. Do not use nationality. Oh, where are you from? Are you from Canada? Are you from Russia? Don't ask, because their nationality is irrelevant. So you should not ask the question. Do not use a religious reference. Near temple, see? Near mosque or church or Christian or Muslim or Catholic. Never use those terminologies. And also don't use gender or sexual orientation, male, female, transgender, homosexual, gay, nothing like that. I put here some words that are unacceptable. I'm going to post this list of words on our chat, so you guys know what words are really unacceptable, okay? In general, describe the property, not the people. Anything that you do on your advertising to be related to the property, not to people. Scott, I'd like to bring you in now to help me with this scenario here and explaining to more legal details what is going on. Thank you, Scott, one more time to being here with us. It's an honor, again, to have you as our in-house legal counsel and to be here with us. Thank you.
My pleasure. I can't see any of you. I think it's because your information is still up. Can you pull that down? Orlando?
What?
Can you pull down that screen so I can see the group? There we go. Thank you for having me today. Essentially, this came across my desk when I got a call from a realtor. Again, they will go unnamed. And she presented a problem that resulted in a lawsuit, as Orlando told you. Now, her original fear was that she was getting sued. And when I looked at the lawsuit, I explained to her, no, you're not getting sued, your broker is, which makes a lot of sense because as realtors, we all work for Arlindo, which means at the end of the day, the broker's neck is on the chopping block. They're responsible for anything and everything that we do, good, bad, or indifferent. And so similar to when a complaint is lodged with the DBPR and you see the broker's name is included, it goes the same with a lawsuit. And what you have here is a couple of young law firms. When I say young, they've been practicing probably 13, 14 years, who have found a way to make money. And unfortunately, while they hide under the guise of weeding out discrimination, the reality of it is they've just found a little niche in the law and a way to make money. So I first saw something like this a number of years ago with the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, where a couple of law firms got together and they hired some disabled people, people in wheelchairs, and they said, go to this strip of businesses and go to each business, because we happen to know that out of those 10 businesses, 4 of them don't have wheelchair accessible ramps. And we're going to pay you X number of dollars an hour, and just go to each business and let us know if you can get in. And of course, the person in the wheelchair rolls up there, and on the 4 businesses that didn't have the ramp, they couldn't get in. And they went back to the law firm and they said, well, this business, this business, this business. And then the law firm turned around and filed a lawsuit. Violation of the American Disabilities Act. Black and white, it's a slam dunk. And they file it in federal court. Why in federal court? Number one, you need a lawyer in federal court. It's not like small claims where you can go in and represent yourself and the dollar amount is small. But in federal court, you really got to know what you're doing. So that means the individual, the business has to go out and hire a law firm or a lawyer to defend them, and that takes money. And they knew that people wouldn't fight it, and they settle, and they made a bunch of money like that. And so this is patterned very similar to that. You have this American, you have the Fair Housing Act, and it says you can't discriminate against various classes. Now, if you look at this particular lawsuit, it alleges that this realtor put in her advertisement that you got to have a clean background. Now, you would say to yourself, okay, what's wrong with that? Well, the problem is that leads to other things. And so in this case, these 2 law firms that work together, and they go under the guise of Social Justice Law Collective. And they put in their complaint how they're out to weed out discrimination. And essentially they hire what are called testers. And then they direct these testers where to go. This tester didn't come across that advertisement that this realtor had. These lawyers sat there and they combed through the classified sections and they pick out all of the ones that they feel are violating. And then they have their tester call. Now, the way they slingshotted this lawsuit together is they had a black male as their tester. And they targeted the fact that this realtor put in their clean background check. Black male then calls and engages the realtor in conversation. And essentially, as Orlando pointed out, the realtor acted as the homeowners association and made the call of the homeowners association. Well, okay, you got this criminal background, you're probably not going to qualify, so don't bother. Can't do that. It's not the realtor's decision to determine if somebody's going to qualify or not. And my suggestion is that you stay far away from that. If they say, well, I have a DUI conviction on my record, or I have a restraining order against me, am I going to be able to get in there? Am I wasting my time? You don't answer that question. You tell them simply, let's put in an application to the homeowners if you're serious about making an offer, and they will have to decide. And this way, you're not putting yourself in that position, which essentially is putting Orlando in that position, because as we see from this lawsuit, it's not the realtor that's on the hook. And as I showed her, it's her broker that's on the hook. And what these 2 law firms that are doing this realize is that to hire a lawyer, as Orlando said, and to go into federal court and fight this, easily $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And even if there's some good defenses to this, which I happen to actually think there are, because they slingshot, or they sort of as a slingshot used the inquiry about the criminal background and they tied it in to a black tester. And so they're trying to get in under the racial discrimination prohibition by virtue of using a black tester and then making an inquiry into the person's background. But the reality of it is, it could be a white person, it could be Oriental, it could be any ethnicity that makes this inquiry. But of course, they picked one that is one of the classes, one of the protected classes. And so essentially this tester knows, is prepared with the questions to ask, and set this realtor up, and she stepped right into it. So I'm going to suggest, whether you're doing a, you know, newspaper ad, a magazine ad, a classified ad, whatever it is, I would highly recommend running it by Orlindo. If in fact he doesn't even make it mandatory. I don't know if he's going to take that step or not. That's up to him. But I would suggest that anybody that's going to go into print, run it by Orlindo first to make sure you're not violating anything. Because at the end of the day, it's going to fall on Orlindo's lap. And as he told you, in these situations, they know people, they know brokers are probably not going to hire a lawyer to fight it. And so they enter into a settlement negotiation. Now, they don't call you up and they say, hey, you made this discriminatory comment, give us $5,000 or we're going to file a lawsuit. They don't do it that way. They file the lawsuit. They dump it right on your lap. And then they turn around and they'll settle with you. Now, a little homework revealed that this law firm has 19 lawsuits going on right now. As we sit here, 19 separate lawsuits throughout the state of Florida. I don't even know how many they've already settled before these 19, but we do know that they're settling them for as low as $2,500, as much as $7,500. And you say $7,500? Well, yeah, if it's going to cost you $20 or $30 or $40,000 in legal fees to fight it, whether you have it or not, it just makes more economic sense to pay and settle it. And so that's what's happening. And I think it's horrible. I mean, it's almost embarrassing to the legal profession, because honestly, this is not about weeding out discrimination. This is about a couple of greedy law firms that are using the fair, now, to the extent that it puts us realtors and brokers on notice, then maybe there is some good that comes of it. And maybe it will have a deterrent once we start to educate ourselves on their tactics. And if that comes about, so be it. But we don't want to be the ones that are the guinea pigs of this practice. So you got to be very careful that whatever you put in print does not violate any of those classes, or in any way, shape, or form can be piggybacked, as they did here, into one of these by virtue of race. And so that's essentially what you have to look out for. Now, you can get caught blindsided. The things that are going to be problematic are not what we're looking at. If you sit here and you look at the Fair Housing Act and you look at the classes, it's clear to see what you can't do. The things that are going to get you in trouble are the things that are not so clear. And this is a perfect example, okay? If you look at that advertisement where it says clean background required, you would say to yourself, okay, where does that violate race, color, nationality, religion, sex, familial status, or disability? Doesn't fall under any of those. I'm okay. But that analysis is going to fall short, because these lawyers are looking for the ways to be sneaky about it. And so here they use an African-American tester, and then they sort of work that into their complaint, when really this is not about black, white, Oriental, or any other ethnicity. This is about wanting to know if somebody has a criminal background. Now, the reality of it is, if somebody does have a criminal background, there's a very large chance they're not getting into that HOA. But we cannot take the leap of faith and make that decision, because if you do, you will have these law firms out there waiting to pounce on you. So it starts with the classified ad or the, whatever marketing you're putting in print. And then they've got these people out there that are following up. So my suggestion is, number one, run any ad work you're doing through Orlindo to make sure it passes the smell test. And you also got to be very careful when you're talking to people, because you don't know who you're talking to. You could have a client that's a legitimate client and you say the wrong thing and you have a complaint the next day. I was looking with Jennifer, who's also a realtor here in my office, my assistant. We were looking for an apartment for a woman from New York to rent. And she gave us some suggestions that she might be interested in. And one of them was on the fringe of a bad area. And so she said to us, she goes, well, I like this building. It's new. What do you think of that? Now, inside, I told myself, ooh, I wouldn't live there. You're not going to want to live there. It's a rough neighborhood. You can't go outside past dark. You risk getting mugged. Can't tell her that, okay? Because if I do, I'm steering her away from that neighborhood. That you cannot do. So how did I handle it? I suggested to her, look, if you're interested in that building, let's set up a showing for when you're going to be in town, and we will show you the building. You'll take a look at the neighborhood, you see what you think. And this way, I don't run the risk of steering or perhaps offending somebody and getting a complaint lodged against me. And that's how you handle it. You got to be really, really careful, because the lawyers, the law firms are out there just waiting for the realtor to step in that hole. And when they do, or you do, they're going to pounce on you, and they're going to do it in a way where you basically got to buckle. And in these types of situations, it falls on Orlindo. And we don't want to have to turn to Orlindo and say, hey, sorry, I said the wrong thing and we're being sued. So if you're not sure about something, check with Orlindo. You can check with me. I'll be more than happy to assist anybody that reaches out. And I don't profess to be an expert on discrimination or the Fair Housing Act or the ADA, but I can certainly get answers if we need them. So I have an open door for that. Orlindo?
Yes, Scott, thank you for your input. Very, very important.
No.
And that clarified. Reno?
No, I didn't say a word. I just say thank you, Scott.
My pleasure.
Thank you. We do need to be concerning about all of this. In summary, what we can say is this. Don't express your opinion. Don't bring it to you the responsibility that should be to others. And hey, Jennifer. And I have a few agents that called me after I posted the message about our today's meeting. And she was telling me to look into her website to see if there's anything that could be violating any act, Fair Housing Act, the ADA. And that's what I'm doing. I'm looking into that. And I think it's a great idea from Scott is that you send your advertising to me, and I will looking at it, and then I will tell you if it's okay to advertise or not. But this is only one step to protect yourself. I cannot be in every phone call that every agent does. So you're gonna have to be supervising what you say, okay? Because you're not gonna be able to call me and say, Linda, can I say this when you are in the middle of a conversation with a potential tenant? So you're gonna have to think about what you're gonna say if that could be some kind of discrimination. Now, I gave the example and Scott brought it on a situation that happened to him this week. A lady wants to rent an apartment in an area that is it's a very bad area. So he kept himself from expressing his opinion not to get into trouble. This person is the one who's going to rent it or buy the property. she should do the research. There are websites that you can find it that tells you the criminality in areas. They're gonna tell you the arrested area, the arrested people, the time of crimes that's being committed in that area. Also, if there are any convicted person living in that area. So the person can do their research, their homework. You don't have to do that. Your job, once again, is to facilitate a transaction. They want a house, you look for the house, you send them to the listings, they will look into the listing, whatever they like, they tell you, I want to see this property, you take them to the property, and you help to do the closing. Nothing else. We good? Guys, if you have any questions, take the chance that I'm here. Scott is here to answer your question. I'm gonna, before I go to one quickly subject, I want to open for questions. Do you have any questions, guys?
I'm off the hook.
Good, good. Thank you, Scott. One more time. Guys, this is what I wanted to mention to you guys. It was never a mandatory situation, but it has to be now because I had a situation last week twice with 2 different agents, and we have to prevent some things. I'm going to tell you what it is. There was one of our agents that got sick, and he was out of the radar. Nobody could reach him. So me as the broker, I was starting receiving phone calls from sellers that he was representing and from buyers that he was representing, afraid that the transaction is going to fall apart because they cannot reach out to the agent. And one of the sellers told me, look, I am paying a commission and I'm not having a representation. And I said, don't worry, I will take the position and I will help you with this. And he was actually asking to point out some agent, and I can't point out an agent. So that's me as a broker. So I step in and let's see what we can do to make this thing happen. But then I started facing a problem. I don't have any information about the seller or the buyer that this particular agent is working. So I cannot contact anybody. So that makes a life of a lot of people complicated. Now, imagine if the buyer doesn't close because he cannot reach this agent, and because it's a buyer's default, the seller is going to keep the deposit. Now we have a problem. And you're going to miss getting your commission. So once we don't know the future, we don't know what's going to happen to us, and putting me to think as well. Guys, I have 60 people under me. If anything happens to me, who's going to write the checks? Who's going to sign those checks? I cannot jeopardize the life of 60 people just because I think I'm going to live forever and nothing's going to happen to me. So I took my son yesterday. I took him to the bank. I put him as a signature. I brought him here and I show him how to make the checks, how to sign the checks, where everything is, the software that we use it to make it. If anything happens to me, I will not be jeopardizing you guys. You guys are not going to be not receiving your commission. And I think it's a situation that everybody should be preparing themselves, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So guys, one thing that was always mandatory is every time that you get into an agreement, that you send that agreement to me and Alexa. You don't wait to close to send us the contract signed and the closing statement. We should follow the process from the moment that the process is started. So if you take a listing and then the seller signs the listing, you send a copy of the listing to us. If you get a contract and it's signed by both parties, you don't need to send it to us before, because actually there is no contract if we don't have a meeting of the mind. So once you get the signature from both parties, you need to send the contract to us. And every single document that is involved in that transaction, if you prepare any type of extension or addendums, anything that is part of this transaction should be sending to me and to Alexa. And one more thing, send the contact information. If you're representing the seller, send the seller's contact information. If you're representing the buyer, send the buyer's contact information. If anything happens to you, God forbid, or you take a vacation and someone calls and you are unable to answer the call because you are on a cruise or something, there is no internet connection, that's not thinking only to worse, you know, at least I will be able to help you if you're not here to answer the calls. I got a phone call today from one agent that is ready to put an offer, but he needs to show the property for the second time for the buyer, and he cannot get a hold of the agent, and I can't do anything about it. I'm also trying to call the agent, and she's not even answering my phone calls. So get all those documentations to us so we can help you better. So that's why we're here. Okay, guys, any questions?
No.
Good.
Thank you, Arlindo.
All right, guys. I hope it was very informative, and you guys can protect yourself. And again, if you have any,
And if not, we have you.
yes, send me your advertising, your broker remarks. I'm gonna take a look at it and make it as okay for you guys. Just to concern about one thing: make money. Okay, that's what is important at the end of the day. Thank you again, Scott, for being here with us and bringing your knowledge to us and supporting us. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I wish you a good rest of your day and a great weekend. And we'll see you again next week.
Grazie Arlindo. E
Thank
grazie
you,
per-
everybody. Thank you,
Ciao.
Scott. Thank you, Arlindo.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
See you guys soon in the big, huge office.
Thank you,
Good.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.